this 721 merger. Uh, from the very beginning, I was adamantly opposed to a merger. I was a member of 660 before it was 660 back in the early 70s, and the purpose of a labor union is to represent the members. Think about this for a minute. What does this merger bring as far as strength to the memberships? And I'll get into that in just a second. The way it had been in the past is that you had local unions. Each union had elected board members that were in theory supposed to represent the members through the bargaining units and different units within the union. Now, what was supposed to happen was those represented members were supposed to express the will of their members as far as how money was spent, as far as the direction of the local. Now you have a situation where you got 721, which is now a corporation. And I'll put it right on the table. Andy Stearns is a corporatist, and that's not a surprising word to anybody. He's a globalist, and he believes in cooperation with management. Some of the contracts that have been signed recently in healthcare have been weak contracts just to organize, and you don't do that. You come in with the strong contract. If you imagine a pyramid, the way the labor movement was originally conceived was that the members are here up top, and it's pyramid inverted so that the so-called leaders are at the bottom. The members are telling the leaders what they want. Now, under the new structure, you have the pyramid from the top down. You got Andy Stearns, who is essentially the CEO of the corporation, and you got the members down here. Now, back to the past. In the past, if the union members could talk directly to their elected representatives at the local level, they had a better chance of getting their will expressed as far as money expenditures and the direction of the local. Now they got a so-called regional council, even though it's interim, and you got maybe 2 or 3 members at least, or at most, from your local. Where is the representation? For example, are those members that sit on this interim council of 721? And by the way, 721 means 7 locals combined into one. And that's dumb, but that's where the name came from. All right. So now what happens is the members at the local level, let's take, for example, Los Angeles County. I was a Los Angeles County employee. Let's talk about that for a minute. Now, where's their representation? Where is their representation? Do they have a local board member to go to? The answer is no. And the problem is they don't probably even know who represents them on this temporary council. I think the purpose of this, and I commend Steve for doing it, is that hopefully most members have some access to the internet, and they get a chance to look at what's happening here, either through whatever means, to see the direction, because I guarantee you, most members in the locals throughout California do not even know about this merge thing. They believe probably that the structure has been and is as it was in the past, and it's just not the way it is now. Now let's get back to this question about what does this corporation, this merger, because that's all it is, a corporation. What does it bring as far as strength? I submit to you, nothing. For example, if Los Angeles County employees were to go on strike, would all the other locals in the state support the strike? Would they go out too? The answer is no. Whereas when you had the individual locals like the 347s and the 660s and others, if you had a general strike, every bargaining unit in that local would support it. Now, so I submit to you that the purpose of this merger, and I'm talking very critically of it, is a power grab and a money grab. Number one, labor is not a corporation. It should not be a corporation. A corporation is a CEO and all the employees underneath. A labor union should be the other way around, where the members control the assets and the direction of the local. So the real purpose, in my opinion, of this merger was to get money. In other words, what happens, think about corporate America. When corporate America merges, what's one of the first things they do? They look for what they call duplication of functions, and they start laying off people that were doing the same jobs. Now, this 721 has already done that. Field reps, business reps, organizers have gotten laid off. The second thing they start to do, the second thing is start to liquidate assets. In other words, they take buildings, properties, start to sell them. Now, what do they do that for? They do that to get money for other reasons that is not member driven. Okay? So the thing is, in the final analysis, the members at the local level do not benefit from this merge. They do not merge. Now, when this merge first was happening, they didn't call it a merge, they called it a reorganization or something. I raised realignment. I was there and I spoke out vigorously against it, and of course I got the answer from now one of the top leaders in this 721, Anel Grajeda. Well, we don't know exactly what's going on. Believe me, they knew what was going on. It was a plan. It was a plan for this to come down just as it is. Ask yourself this question. How many members actually got a chance and voted on this merger? How many members? I guarantee you the majority of members did not vote. Because as far as the leadership was concerned, they didn't want to vote anyway. They didn't want to vote. Because a corporation is not democratic. It's not democratic. Labor unions as they previously existed should have been, the intent was to be democratic, so that the rank and file members, through legitimate elections, and God knows we've seen some corrupt ones, should have been able to elect people that truly represented them. Now you got one man. You have Andy Stern essentially calling all the shots, making all the appointments, telling this new merger, this new merged local 721 union, mega union, the direction that it's going. And I think that's very tragic, because what it does, the members are now not empowered whatsoever. Furthermore, I don't believe that legally and legitimately there should have been a right to dissolve local union boards. People were elected and all of a sudden they were unelected. How did that happen? Just ask yourself that question. How did that happen? Board members lost their positions, duly elected. Business agents, field reps lost their jobs. The bottom line is what this merger did is set union democracy back 30 years. That's what it did, under the guise of making the union stronger. So, again, I want to thank Steve for doing this thing, because I think the whole thing always is to first organize the members by letting them know what's going on. And see, initially people don't see a difference, but I guarantee you sooner or later that they will. I was always considered a malcontent because I didn't buy into loyalty to the president, whether he's elected legitimately or not. Our president happened to be Alejandro Stephen, and of course I certainly had differences with him. I think that when I spoke out too much, I saw this coming, because our union, and I'm sure I'm not speaking for just our union, but a lot of other unions, started to lose its democracy. It started to lose the democracy. The members' fiduciary responsibility was to look out for the members. And in our case, it was a corporation, and for some reason they did that. But it was still democratic, or at least that was the intent. In fact, it wasn't. Now, we've gone from worse to worser, if you can imagine those kinds of words. So what we're trying to do, I think, and like I said, I've been retired for 5 years now, but I'll never give up the struggle, because labor in this country is in a greatly weakened state. back in the 50s when labor union was pretty strong, you had more strength to represent the members. Steve spoke about unions giving all this money to the politicians, by the way, and that's your money, coat money or whatever. I don't agree with that, and I've always talked about that. Because if a labor union is strong, the way you control a politician, and you don't get the Bill Clintons of the world, is you tell them, and you be strong enough to organize and say, I'm going to get 10,000 members on the street, and we're going to kick you out of office. That's the hard work. But that's the way you control the politicians, not by giving them money. Volunteering, membership, work. That's how you control the politicians, not by giving them money. You don't throw money at a fire. It just burns up. Think about it. So anyway, again, just to cut it a little bit shorter, the essence is that the members need to know, number one, about this merger. They need to know that it did not strengthen them, that in fact it weakened the membership, and that ultimately I hope that the union movement is restored back to what it is, but really takes a true direction. That is that the elected members represent the members that they're supposed to represent.
My name's Art Sweatman. I work for the City of Los Angeles Department of Public Works. I'm a tree surgeon. I've been with the city for 10 years, and I've been active in Local 347 for about 8 of those years. I sat on the executive board as a trustee in 2001, and I have also been on 3 bargaining teams. Let me tell you about our history with 347 a little bit. 347 has always been a very unique and strong union. Represents city workers. We kind of have always, well, we never really identified with SEIU, to tell you the truth. One case that I can bring up was in 2001 when Jim Hahn first ran for mayor of Los Angeles. He was the city attorney at that time. And we all decided that we wanted to endorse him. We felt he was the best suited for the job. Antonio Villaraigosa was his opponent then. And so we unanimously endorsed him. Well, SEIU didn't. And we found ourselves spending our own money against SEIU, who was endorsing Antonio Villaraigosa. Now, we felt really violated by that because, I mean, this is our employer. We should have the right to endorse who we want. And we were sitting out there late in the campaign on Crenshaw and Coliseum at Hahn headquarters. Villaraigosa headquarters is across the street. And SEIU organizes right across the street from us and decides they're going to raid our rally. They're going to raid this city rally. So we stand out there, 347, along with cops and fire, and we do not let them in. So you have to break through us. You're going to have to break through us to get to this rally. We are not going to disrespect our own work site. Well, we ended up winning that election. We had to spend our own money on it against our parent SEIU, but ever since then, we really don't identify with these guys at all. We are a city union. We're proud of it. We do respect the rest of SEIU, but we understand that there's differences. So in early 2006, we started hearing these rumors of this reorganization, this merger, whatever you want to call it. And we talked to our staff about it. They really don't have that much to say. But we said, we don't want any of this. What can we do to stop it? Well, they say there's really nothing we can do to stop it because SEIU has the right to organize their union however they'd like. But we all sat down and said, there's something wrong here. There has to be a loophole. So we said, we're going to keep in touch and we're going to keep talking about this. We're not going to let this go here. We'll figure something out. Soon after, there was the regional hearings that SEIU held. And when that report came out, the report of the regional hearings came out, it was noted that Local 347 was the only local that did not want any change to its structure whatsoever. Well, we know what happened after that. They decided that they were going to hold an election and that these mergers were going to go forward. In the summer of 2006, Andy Stern sent a letter out that somehow ended up in my hands. but it was basically instructing the staff of all the locals and the board members to not use any union resources to speak out against a merger. Don't speak about it at all. Mum's the word. You have nothing to say about that. And suddenly our staff went silent. They had nothing to say about it. They couldn't say anything about it. They wanted to, but they were all afraid for their jobs. Not long after that, I was fortunate enough to attend to be invited to the first ever SEIU Republicans Convention. Yes, I'm a Republican. The first ever SEIU Republican Convention in Washington, D.C. And a group of us went from Local 347. We met up with some of our 660 folk over there and other Southern California unions, and we started asking, hey, how do you guys feel about this reorganization? They said, well, we don't want it. They said, well, neither do we. I was in a joint labor management committee with Dan and some other folks from street services, and we had talked about fighting this. The only thing we could come up with is decertification. So we started talking about that amongst the members in D.C., and when we got an opportunity at we had a little party, a little dinner party after the meeting, and Andy Stern came table to table. And so we were waiting. We were waiting for him. And when he came up to us, I asked him, hey, Andy, why are you merging our union? Our members have said they don't want it. He said, well, because we need to organize Southern California. And I said, well, we're doing that. But our members have said no to this merger. And the members run this union, don't we? He said, well, yeah, but I have a vision, Art. I have a vision about organizing the Inland Empire. We need to organize the Inland Empire. We got to get out there and spread out. And I said, well, gee, Andy, I mean, I think we can do that as we are. We can send people out to organize. That's what unions do. And he said, no, you guys have all said that before, and you never come through. I don't believe you. Well, I said, Andy, the bottom line is, we're the union. If you merge us into this mega union that goes from Riverside County all the way to San Luis Obispo, you're taking the local out of the union. I asked him, did we do something wrong? Is there a reason why we're basically being dissolved and being forced into this new organization? He said, no, you didn't do anything wrong. He said, but this is going through anyways. This is going through. And so I told him just flat out, I said, well, expect a fight. Of course, when I said that, I really didn't know what the fight would be. But right after that, I guess we made enough noise and caused enough commotion where I was approached by somebody who claimed to be an employee of the International. And he pulled me aside and he said, so obviously you guys don't want this thing, right? And I said, yeah, we're going to fight it. He said, how? I said, well, I guess we'll have to decertify. He said, well, you'll lose, because SEIU will just outspend you. I said, well, what can we do? I mean, that's the only thing we can do. He said, no, that's not the only thing you can do. Do you want to win this? Do you want to beat this consolidation? I said, absolutely. What do we have to do? He said, it's really simple. In your contract, under the area of recognition, the city of Los Angeles, and everybody is employer, recognizes the union. It says, on such and such date, so-and-so union, in our case 347, was recognized by our Employee Relations Board to be the exclusive bargaining representative of these MOUs. He said, the minute they dissolve your union and try to change over to this new union, whatever it may be, the minute they do that, they've broken this contract with the city of Los Angeles. What you have to do is make your employer aware of this. And that's up to you. You have to organize and make your employer aware that the union does not exist anymore and that they shouldn't be recognized. So I thought about this, and we talked a little bit more, but I realized that this guy had just given me some major ammunition, and he told me to lay low with it. He said, don't talk to anybody except your the closest guys that you have, the guys that you know are going to go along with this. So I did. I sat on it until I flew back to Los Angeles, and I was really hoping that plane didn't crash, because this whole thing would disappear with me, because I didn't tell anybody about it. I just told the guys, some of the people there, we're going to win this. We're going to stop this consolidation. When I got back, I spoke to Dan Mariscal, and some of my other JLM team members, and we decided, okay, we're going to have to figure out when we're going to implement this plan. Well, luckily, Dan has quite a relationship with our employee relations board. He represents people with unfair labor practices there. And he happened to get an email one day about what the agenda was going to be. And I guess that was around March of 2007. And it basically notified him that Local 347, or 721 actually, had filed papers to change the name from 347 to 721. We said, bingo, this is where we move. This is where we strike. So when they showed up to the Employee Relations Board, we showed up as well, and we fired our first shot. We made the Employee Relations Board aware that this was more than a name change. This was a change in organization. This was a change in the way the union does business. This is not the same union that was recognized by the Employee Relations Board and it was certified to represent these 4 bargaining units. Our members didn't vote for it, and under the Employee Relations Ordinance, we oppose this because we have the right to not participate in an organization, especially one that is not recognized. Well, that got the ERB's attention. They ordered the petitions posted, for name change posted around the whole city. When we came back a month later to decide this, we filed formal opposition papers, and the Employee Relations Board granted us hearings. They granted us hearings to be set in August. In other words, they didn't recognize 721. They didn't recognize the union. They still, and to this point, to this date, they still do not recognize Local 721. So we had our informational hearings in August to decide if the petitions filed before the City of Los Angeles were appropriate by 721. We said no. A union that's not recognized cannot go before the City of Los Angeles and say, we're the union. They have to go through a certification process, bottom line. That's why we don't have to decertify to fight this. We don't have to decertify from a union that simply doesn't exist. And what we've done also is we've noted that while 721 is still not recognized, our dues money is still being taken from us. In around March of 2007, Local 347's accounts were closed and drained, and our board was dissolved. And we found out, and this was presented at our hearing, this is testified at our hearing, that basically 347's board did not approve the money to go to 721. This was a verbal agreement between the general manager of Local 347, Julie Butcher, and 660's general manager, now interim president of 721, Anel Grajeda. They basically verbally agreed to transfer that money over. So while on our paychecks it says that our dues money is going to Local 347, it's really going to 721, and we've made our city controller aware of that. We filed a claim against the City of Los Angeles to stop forwarding our money. We've basically made the same claim before the city attorney's office, and we're waiting for a response on that. If they do not cease to send our money to an unrecognized union, then we're going to go to the Superior Court of Los Angeles, and we're going to file a restraining order against the city so that we can get control of our money. Our bottom line is this. What we want is exclusive jurisdiction of our union. We sympathize with everybody who's been a part of these forced mergers, and we want to let you know that there is a way to fight back. We're not going to sit here and let the union run us. We run this union. This is our union. It's bad enough that you have to go to work and you have to face the bosses sometimes and they kind of harass you. We're not going to get harassed by our own union. There's no way. That's not happening. 721 will not be recognized. We will take that dues money from SEIU. It's up to them now to decide whether they want that dues money or not. If they want that dues money, they'll give us exclusive jurisdiction of our union. If they don't, then we're going to go union shopping, plain and simple. Because I think there's somebody out there who's going to want the dues money of 9,000 other members. Now, what we can do with this is if and when we win this case, we basically are setting precedent here. And all you other locals out there, well, you can do the same thing based on what we're doing. You can file for reconsideration before your PERBs or Employee Relations Board, whatever it is that you have, based on our case. You can file for reconsideration and you can win it as well, because 721 has been recognized by your employers, but they kind of slipped it through. They didn't go through any certification process. If you make them aware of that, you can win. But it's going to take some organization. And I hope some of you guys have a little fight in you, and I hope some of you, aren't intimidated by the union. I know a lot of people, you get a little scared, but you don't have to be afraid of these guys. You don't have to be afraid of SEIU. They can't fire you. They can't do anything to you. You have your jobs. You're secure. You can fire them. That's the bottom line. And we have a website. We're called Fight for 347. Our website's up on the board. It's a Yahoo group. It's free to join. We exchange information on there with everybody. Everybody is free to comment and leave whatever opinion that they want. And I'd like to thank Dan Mariscal, who has been amazing in this fight, because my role in this is kind of to be the messenger and deliver the message to the folks, but he is the litigator behind this, and he has done all of the work, all of the hard work in between us and the city of Los Angeles, and I'd like to thank him for that, and thank Steve for having us.
The sad part of our introduction to each other is that you guys have to be as frustrated as I am in what has been happening with SEIU. The positive aspect to this interaction is that hopefully you will get an idea that the information that's being communicated, if you don't already know it, is that you, by having an open mind, will understand that we have lost control of these locals, and the only way to really have a democratic voice is to gain that control back. The thing that is shocking to me is that SEIU did their best to educate me and make me a union activist. I'm just a regular guy. I wasn't involved with unions until about 8 years ago. I felt that as long as I went to work and didn't make problems, I didn't need a union. I had whatever they got me in a raise was fine. Whatever they didn't get me, I didn't care. I was busy living. And now that I'm not 21 years old anymore, I'm understanding that I've been wasting a lot of time where I could have been very active in making a better, stronger voice for the members to have respect in the workplace. So initially when I was brought on board in the local, and it happens, I see it happening all the time every day, the union doesn't know how to look at you, so they assume, because they're looking for activists, they assume that you're going to buy their line, their union line, hook, line, and sinker, so they start introducing you slowly to committees. Once you get on committees, then they start bringing you into the inner circle committees, the ones that are really making the union run, and eventually you can get into the board of directors if you organize well in your work site and get the votes. That's what I went through. I was the fly on the wall. I was not protesting to anything that they were presenting. This was a new experience for me, but like I say, I wasn't 21, so I'm going, okay, well, let's just see where this is going to go. So there was things that I was becoming privy to that let me understand that, oh, so this is how they do business. And initially, because of being naive, I thought, well, okay, all unions are like this, so this is just a new language and a new way to exist, and let me check it out. What I started to accept finally is that, no, I don't like the way this is going, because they advertise that this is a member-driven organization, but the members that actually, when they're kind enough, the staff people, to let the members have a voice, it's their chosen activists, their loyalists, that are looking for an advantage for themselves. The people that are really activists in the local, at Local 660 right now, are the ones that have been handpicked to uphold whatever position and direction that Anel Grajeda is receiving from Andy Stern. All of this, like previous speaker Ron Tanner suggested, is a corporate organization now. All the decisions are coming from him. It's a power grab. It's a consolidation of power, and it's for the purpose of redistributing all our resources. In Local 660, because this is my first union, Local 660, what was amazing to me was to find out that we were generating, and well, I'm sure we still do, we're generating over $700,000 a month in revenue that's being forwarded to the international. So I was looking for the benefit to us as members. I'm going, if we're sending that much money to them, what do we get out of this besides purple t-shirts? And when I went through my first contract bargaining committee, then I'm going, okay, now let's see the contracts, let's see the examples. What is the international going to send to me? Where's their advisor to tell me what are the points that we should be looking for? Where are to strengthen our contracts? What do they think we can get away with asking our employer? They should have all this information. And they do have all this information, but I was told, and I was shocked to find out, that they have a legal department in Washington, D.C., and I went online and found out that their legal department people get really well paid, but no, they're not in the business to give anybody advice like that. So I'm going, hey, wait a minute, okay, so what is it that we get from this? And this is just one local, and I'm thinking, how many locals are there across the country? We're sending $700,000 a month. A month. To me, that it was mind-boggling, and I still can't figure it out. I see Andy Stern is negotiating, trying to organize workers in China, in India, in England, in Africa, in Central America, and I'm going, okay, I know about globalization, but how is that helping me here in LA County? And is that where my dues money is going? And I have this real sinking feeling that maybe it is. So that's bothersome to me. It took a while for some of us to run out of patience, to understand that we needed to start having forums like this. And when initially I started discussing it with fellow members, the possibility of doing something like this, then the people were real hesitant, because we know what has happened in 660 could happen to us still. We have bore the brunt of having a dictatorial president with an SEIU that backs up that kind of behavior. So one of the things that I wanted to read right now for everyone, so that you'll hopefully put some of us more at ease. And the hardest thing in SEIU is to get information. But if you're persistent, I say persistent, my wife says stubborn, is that you can find that information. And if you look at the Constitution and bylaws as adopted of the SEIU International at the 2004 convention, there's something called the SEIU Member Bill of Rights and Responsibilities in the Union. And some of those rights are the right to have opinions heard and respected, to be informed of union activity, to be educated in union values and union skills, the right to a full accounting of union dues, and the proper stewardship over union resources. That's big to me. The right to have members' concerns resolved in a fair and expeditious manner. The responsibility to offer constructive criticism of the union. And that's what I'm doing here today. There's too many people that have been afraid of the backlash that'll occur for speaking out. We've witnessed it. There are a couple of board of directors at 660 just before we were dissolved that were very disrespectfully removed as board of directors, and it was a sham move. There was Robert rules bent to the advantage of the dictator that was running our local at the time. I kept on thinking, no, wait a minute, this can't be happening. These are members. The union the union professional staff seemed to be backing the move, and it happened. I thought, how does this help the people out in Orange County? How does this help them continue to want to tell their friends and neighbors and fellow co-workers that, yeah, the union's great and you need to be a part of it? I didn't understand it. I still don't. I want to say that what I have perceived this merger to be is nothing more than, like I said earlier, a consolidation of power and resources. We just found out this morning that our building, which our dues have paid for as LA County employees, and we purchased only about 5, 6, 7 years ago, was sold. And initially, the way it was marketed to those of us that were in attendance at a small meeting of about 10 people of the budget committee was that now's the time to strike because of the real estate market, and with that money we could save that. And there was, what does save mean when you're talking millions of dollars? I don't know the interest, but it's not. They thought that they were foreseeing the real estate market going down, so they wanted to strike while the price was right. And we just heard this morning that they did sell our building, and what I've been hearing since since initially we heard this conversation, is that with the presidential campaign coming up, we need to be actively involved. So it doesn't take more than a little bit of common sense for me anyway to put together that what's happening is we're going to be bordering on illegal activities and trying to circulate some of this money to the international so that that money can be used to try to elect the president. That seems to be the main focus of Andy Stern right now. Some of the information that is available, and I've been pressuring quite hard on Anel Grajeda to get it to us, each and every single member should be allowed access to the minutes of the Board of Directors meetings. I was a Board of Director before we were unceremoniously rejected and told that our job was finished, and this was before the merger even happened. And the interim board members are the loyalists that, in my opinion, are just looking for attention. And they get that attention by not having any thoughts contrary to how they're directed to think. And their reward for being loyalists like that are to be invited to go to conventions, to be invited to go to conferences out of town, to be taken off their jobs and be given jobs there with the union, and oftentimes at a higher salary than at their normal jobs. Okay, it's egos that are starving for attention that I don't understand why they would do that and not be critical thinkers. What the union dues money goes to is to support everybody's existence that is a professional union worker. I have confusion over that. A long time ago, I was told that if you want to know how an organization works, follow the money. And so I've been steadfastly trying to follow the money, and it's the hardest information to get. It's like the stock market. I still can't figure it out. We support a California State Council. We support an LA County Federation of Labor. I found out we support the United Farm Workers. Everywhere, our money is being used to support union professional staff people. And I keep on wondering, as labor itself is in such a decline, how is it that we're spending more and more money paying salaries and it doesn't seem to be working? I'm concerned that we should be about organizing, and what the union has really been doing has been about servicing the members. When they service the members, then they say, that's okay, we'll take care of it. And then what they're doing, what I've seen happen at 660, is they take a core group of people that are activists and they become their go-between between the members and the union professional staff. It's insidious the way it happens. We don't have control as individuals, and I'm quite concerned now that what we see happening in the private sector, where companies start going into bankruptcy and jettisoning pension plans, where health care benefits for retirees, retirees have no control. I absolutely understand that we must have a union. That is our only strength. That is our only hope, that we not be treated as slaves in this country with corporate America. But I'm not sure that this corporation, SEIU, is going in the direction that is in our best interest. When originally we heard about the merger, we were told that this would make us bigger, better, stronger. Well, LA County at the time was 55,000 members. We were well financed. We were paying 1.5% of our monthly dues, monthly salaries in dues. And with this merger, we were shocked to find out that there are unions that we were going to be merged with that were, well, they didn't tell us, we had to find out the hard way, in bad financial problems. Part of their financial problems is that they were paying a flat rate of $25 per month. I don't know why that's shocking that they would have financial problems if that's all the dues they're paying. There was another union that is now part of 721 where they're still paying $34.50 a month flat rate. Now, what we should be doing as 347 members and as 660 members, we should be screaming to the tops of the rafters. 660 alone is contributing 2/3 of all of the revenue that 721 is generating. And we took from the precipice of bankruptcy the Riverside County local and the Ventura County local, and we're now paying 2/3 of all their bills. That's common sense. That's the way it's working. But they wouldn't dare admit that to the members of 660. They wouldn't dare admit that to the members of 347. When you talk about bigger, better, stronger, why don't they put that out there? Why don't they ask for our understanding? Why don't they say that eventually we'll all be paying the same dues rate, but right now it has to be this way? And then if you start thinking globally, then I'm thinking, okay, I'm paying personally for someone else, and that's helping out a brother or a sister, but where does that stop? I mean, from this country, from California to this country, and then around the world. What I'm real concerned about is to raise everybody else's standard of living, to organize, to make unions everywhere around the world, then it's going to be very difficult for me to keep my current standard of living. I think more of us need to understand how this is going to impact us and affect us and logically think it through, and I think we need to react as we should. What happened in one fell swoop with that merger is that we went from having a general manager who was our salaried employee as members, and our board of directors had the authority to hire and fire when we renewed her contract every 3 years. In one fell swoop with that merger, she became the president. So at that instant, she no longer was responding to our needs as members. She no longer had to see if we were going to renew her contract or not. She just waited for the phone calls from Andy Stern and get his direction. Right now, a question no one will ask is, what is her salary? But I can tell you what, we're paying it, and that's just not acceptable. Everything's coming from the Washington, D.C. One of the bits of information that I was also able to get, and you can get it from the SEIU721.org website, is that in one of the board meetings, it was determined that Andy Stern has asked for a $20 contribution from every member of 721. Okay, so as 85,000 members strong local now, as they claim we are, that's approximately $1.8 million. Okay, and it's announced there that that money is going to be used to pay for the 2008 presidential campaign. That's a lot of money. For presidential campaign contributions, my understanding is that there's a strict it's COPE dollars that has to come from. You can't just contribute money like that from unions particularly, because that'll get you into legal problems. Our COPE contributions, at least from 660's point of view, doesn't nearly come to that kind of amount of money. So I'm not sure where that money is going to come from. I have a sinking feeling that things are going to be done that aren't above board, and that also is information that should be being communicated to the members. I'm like anybody else. I want to be part of a winning team. A union is a good thing. I don't want to be on a sinking ship, and it seems as though we're in like hyperspeed heading to the extinction of labor, to the extinction of unions, and I'm just not accepting of it, and I'm exercising my right to protest about it and see what I can do about trying to wake up other people. I'm upset about it, and I mention this information where I can, when I can, and it's really difficult because it's like a religion sometimes. People don't want to hear it, but people are going to get to my age, and then they're going to start thinking that, yeah, we need to be concerned about retirement, that this never ends. That's the only way we're going to protect our livelihoods in the future. I just also want to say that as far as the merger goes, what was real telling to me about where we were going to go with it was that the hearing officers, and I've got that information too, the hearing officers was a Tom Balinoff and an Alice Dale. And it turns out that they're on the International Executive Board. And it also turns out that besides their regular jobs in their locals as union professional staff people, that because they're on the international board, they get additional money for being members of that international board. So this Tom Balinoff in 2006, and this is documented through IRS, the Department of Labor website, received a reported $232,000. Okay? Alice Dale, who was also tapped to be one of the hearing officers in 2006, received $127,000. So it's when you get that kind of information, it's not a stretch for me to imagine that there would be a bias on their part to hear presentations from members to say that they're not for this, and their report would say, oh no, everybody loved it. And that's how the report came out. The only exception was 347 was actually so vocal that they did have to put something in there to acknowledge their opposition to this whole presentation. The mergers was like a dog and pony show to me. 660 having 55,000 members, we were 14 members strong only in these hearings, and 7 of the members were there with Anel Grajeda, who was the general manager at the time. And what we found out afterwards, that each of those people that spoke with Anel Grajeda read a prepared speech that had been written by the assistant general manager, Bart Diener. The people in the group that I was a part of, we were there speaking from the heart. We were telling them that this was not the time, this was not the place, that anything that we could do together, we could do separate, as long as those locals were directed and there was some enforcement of the request of Washington, D.C. to get the cooperation from the locals to do this. They could do it. We didn't have to be combined together. What made sense to me was that one employer, one local. Okay? Whenever you had more than one employer, then how can you bring pressure to bear on someone who's not getting money from the same place? It didn't make sense until you started following the money. Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo apparently had some sort of clause in their bylaws that from a long time ago that had not been taken out and was allowed to be kept in. So at this point, 721 may not be all of that. Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo are still not part of 721. With the valiant work the local 347 is doing right now, 347 is not part of 721. And like Art suggested, what they are doing in 347 could also possibly be done at 660. And Anel's not ready for that. That's why the interim executive board that she appointed, in the few minutes of the meetings that the board meetings that they're having, in 660 we used to have them after work. And that afforded the opportunity for some people that were interested to come and witness what was going on at the board meetings. The board meetings now with this interim executive board are during normal working hours. So most of us are not able to see what they're doing. But the few minutes that are on the website, I'm taking a look at, and all of the votes are unanimous. All of the votes are by consensus agreements to whatever it is that's being made into a motion. So I don't feel any of us are being fairly and equitably respected or represented, and this just has to stop. More of us have to wake up. We can't allow them to continue on like this, because this isn't a member-driven organization anymore, and it bothers me to no end when I continue to hear that line of crap. What I'd like to say is that I've been continuing to strive to make myself a pest, because it's my right as a union member. They take dues money from me. I don't say I'm trying to decertify from SEIU. I'm in there for the long haul. And I hope you'll all join me in that. And anybody who needs a hand in trying to track any of this information down, I'm telling you, everything that I'm saying is absolutely fact. They do have to print out some of this information, and by hook and crook, I'm getting access to it, and I'd love to spread it to everybody that's here. So thank you for bearing with me, being patient, and good luck to all of us.
First of all, I want to thank Arturo for inviting me down here to be able to speak with you. Like I said, my name is Mike Escarciola. I serve as the president of Alliance of Orange County Workers. I was initially a board member at 660. I was the past president of SEIU 660, Chapter 787, representing Orange County. I was one of the people that was kicked out of the union. Me and my co-worker, Tommy Gallegos, who was also a board member. And it was by Alejandro Stevens implementing to fill the seat that had been vacant for over 3 years and going completely against Robert rules the way he did it. At that meeting, I stood up and I addressed the board, and I told them that our DCERT was going through because we wanted to break away from 660. And the main reason was because of the reorganization, the 721 change that was coming about. Our members in Orange County didn't want it. Nobody voted for it in Orange County at all. We didn't believe in it. We didn't believe in the direction that 660 was taken. I have been a member of 660 prior to this for the last 12 years. I believe that I've served 660 faithfully. I was out there organizing for them. I did politically. I worked for them. Anything that 660 asked me to do as a member and as the president of Orange County, I went out and did it. I served on the board of directors alongside my brother Arturo Diaz, and there's where I had the privilege of meeting Arturo. And sitting with him at the board meetings month after month, month after month, getting to really know Alejandro Stevens was just my misfortune. You know, everybody knows about the meetings that went on at 660 where Alejandro Stevens would get up and just start screaming at everybody. And it didn't matter if it was a man or if it was a female. He would say words that would come out of Alejandro Stevens' mouth was so bad, being the president of one of the largest unions in LA County. And once he started going on a tangent, there was nothing to stop him. Well, when we were kicked out, or when I was kicked out of the union, we decided that we no longer wanted to be part of 660. So we started a campaign to desert from 660, and we ran the full gamut. You know, it was a core of people that were the board members of Orange County that started this. Initially, the first go around we went out to our members on our own time. Guys took off a vacation, went out on their own time, and we got 85% of our membership to desert. Because of some unforeseen reason, according to our ERR, we had the date mixed up. We thought it was the whole month of October when it was supposed to be September 26th to October 26th. So when we turned in the petitions to desert, we missed it by 5 days. I was totally devastated, as well as all the workers who were behind me who were working towards this. But we didn't stop. You know, the endeavor was there to continue to fight this. We didn't want to be part of 660 anymore. We wanted a union that was going to be run by members. It was going to be a member-driven union. So in the process, our attorney staff that we have on now, we were able to contact them, talk to them, and the attorney, James Harker, called me from Minnesota, and he said he decided to take us on as a client. And with the help of the staff, filing all the legal papers, and we went through the whole gamut of filing legal papers to try to desert from 660. And it came down to where when the contract ran out, that was our window to do it. And we had that window of opportunity when our contract ran out, and we got enough signatures, and we filed it, and it took it to a vote, and we were successful. But that's just going ahead of time. You have to go back and realize that the membership that was involved in doing all this, They did it all on their own time. Guys were taking 2-3 weeks off of their own time, their vacation time, their calm time, to go out to the different work sites and visit these people. Prior to us calling for an election, or the state calling for an election, we weren't allowed to go to the different job sites. SEIU threw out tons of money. They had organizers out there. They had 5 organizers every day at every work site, at every job site, and they kept spewing all this misinformation, all these lies, all these hatreds. I was accused of, because I oversaw the trust fund, that I was taking money from the trust fund and giving it to I was giving it to the politicians. I was accused of hiring my wife and paying her a salary out of this trust fund. And because these guys were able to be out in the job sites at all times, and they kept repeating it over and over and over, some of these people believed it. Some of my friends that I worked with believed this. You know, not until we were able to go out there and talk to the membership that I was able to clear my name. And when we had the election, we overcame, you know, but it was through a lot of hard work from a lot of our members. I am so internally grateful to the board that I have right now. This core group of 10 people that we started with was the backbone of AOCW, and through their hard work is that we're here now. You know, we have a membership that is run by county members, county employees. We have no salary. We have paid for our own stuff. You know, members have paid for their own business cards, our flyers. Members have stepped up and contributed money. We were actually getting dues from other members out in the work field and contributing to us because we weren't having any dues coming in. So that's what I mean by the members believed in us. We didn't have anything to lose. We weren't getting any salaries from the union, you know. We don't get any salaries now. When we bring somebody aboard to become a board of directors, we let them know that this is a member-driven organization. You have to do certain things. What you do on your own is you go out and do job sites on your days off, you know. And these members have stepped up and do that. They get off, they go do job sites, they come back to report to the members or to the board. We have a board meeting every week. We've had a board meeting every Wednesday for the last year. These guys come after work. They drive 50 miles to come to a board meeting to go over what's happening. What's our next step now? You know, and they did it for the last year on their own time. And that was one of the reasons the people out there in the work site believed in us, because they knew us. We weren't going to lie to them. They weren't going to, these people that came from LA, you know, they didn't work in LA. They don't live in LA. And yet LA, Riverside, they were down here and they were getting paid with our dues money to come down here and sit there and spew all these lies about us. You know, they confronted me. They one organizer wanted to fight with me, and you know, in front of our custodians, when we had a meeting with the custodians, and the custodians have known me, and they saw this guy, and they were just incensed with that. So when it came to voting, a lot of the custodians were able to vote for us, because they believed in me and they believed in our members and the board of directors, because we had been going out there before. The new board that they had, you know, wasn't even an election. It was appointed. The board was appointed by the business agent. You know, she appointed a president, she appointed a vice president, and she appointed the trustees on the trust. When I was kicked out of the union, first of all, I was locked out. I was still a member of 660. And it wasn't, well, I can talk loud enough. Wow, okay. That feedback. You know, and I'm here today really just to talk, you know, from my heart. You know, I don't have a prepared speech. You know, I'm not as eloquent as my brother Ron here or my brother Arturo. And I've known these gentlemen for a long time. When I speak from my heart, and the members know this. I don't have any reason to lie to my members. You know, I've been a county employee for 18 years. I have 2 more years left within the county that I'm going to retire. But what we have now is the foundation of a group of individuals, of a union, and we call ourselves a union, even though we're an association. We are a union because we represent our people. The dues money now stays in Orange County, and what we do with that money is we turn it around to serve our members by better representation. And that's what the unions used to be before. You know, it was a member-driven union before. That's what all these unions were, and now it's not. You know, it's run by this man up on top, and he is the dictator. He is that CEO. His salary, my God, as much money as Andy Stern makes is unconscionable, you know. And for him to come down and say, or write emails to the board of directors or Anel Grenada and say that every member has to contribute $20 extra to the presidential election, you know, that's bad, you know. And that is the goal of all the directors out there, all these business reps. They have to go out and get the $20 from all these members, you know. Within our bylaws state that no money is ever going to be turned over to any politicians at all, you know. And people talk about, how do you get politicians, you know. I've talked to a lot of politicians because I know quite a few of them, and I told them, you know, we get their endorsements, or they get our endorsements, and then whatever members want to do. If they want to go out there and precinct walk for them, they want a phone bank for them, that's fine. If they want our endorsement, that's what they're going to get. They're not going to get money. They're going to get the labor force out there walking the streets for them and making phone calls. And these guys have already been calling me to get our endorsements already, because an endorsement from the blue-collar workers of Orange County is a good endorsement. It's the working people of Orange County, you know, and they want that. And they know by keeping in contact with us that that's going to happen. And we don't care if that individual is a Democrat or if that individual is a Republican. If he is working towards the goal of representing the people, then, you know, so be it. We have endorsed Republicans and we have endorsed Democrats before, you know, as long as they're going to serve the cause of labor. That's the whole focal point of our group. I cannot say enough about the membership in Orange County, you know. These guys have stepped forward. We have endured a lot of roadblocks, and we have overcome each one at a time, you know. And like I said, I have a couple of years left. What I like to see is now that this core, to straighten this core for this foundation, and this what it is, it's a foundation of this alliance of Orange County, that it's going to grow. Other labor organizations have seen this. People from 501, they have seen what we have done, and they love that idea that money stays in Orange County and it goes directly back to the membership. They love that idea. We get the best representation now than we have ever had before. You know, we don't wait for somebody from the legal department at 660 to come down and represent a guy or a member 3 weeks or 4 weeks down the line. That member, when he calls in, he gets represented at that time. He comes into the office or he makes a phone call, and the grievance representative talks to him that same day, and he meets with them, and then we take action from there. That's the way a union should be. It's not you have to call a call center and they might get back to you in 24 hours. You know, that's ridiculous. You know, how are they going to function like that? You know, they're going to have all the different MOUs at their table. Well, let me see while I turn to this page, you know. No, you know. Our grievance representative, you know, is very knowledgeable in the MOU, you know. When we go to arbitrations, we have a law firm that has over almost 100 years of experience between them doing labor law. And this is the kind of representation you need. Somebody who can go out there and deal with the County of Orange. Because let me tell you, the Board of Supervisors in Orange County is a whole hell of a lot different than the Board of Supervisors here in LA. You know, Orange County is so conservative and is so different than LA County. And right now we're in a battle with the county supervisors because our contract has expired. But you know what? It's a battle that our members are going to step forward, and we already have a commitment from these members to do what it takes to get our contract ratified. There's a lot of things I could go on and talk, but I'd just be rambling. But the main thing I want to say is, never doubt what a small group of people can do, because they can change the world. It's happened before, and it happened in Orange County because of this small group of people who had a desire to go forward and change and didn't like what was happening, and they went out and changed it. And, and thank God we were able to overcome all the obstacles, And by the grace of God, we are here now. The membership is the Alliance of Orange County. I serve as the president of AOCW, and that is a position that I am truly grateful. I am honored that my members have elected me as the president, and I will endeavor whatever needs to be done to continue serving my members.
This internal struggle, this crossroads between the direction of the international and, UHW trying to remain committed to its core values, where there's direct member involvement at every level and every decision, that we make, and we take the union. So this past week has kind of really been the ugly side of the union, where you have internal politics making their way out into the newspapers and, the court of public opinion, and you have people who have been randomly picked, appointed, and actually what it's done is it's kind of creating a big fracture amongst, union activists, members, because we're the same organization. We pay per capita dues to the international, and UHW is responsible for a lot of leadership politically in the state. We take on a lot of causes, immigration reform. We fight with employers over these collective bargaining agreements that are kind of pre-decided for workers. And the philosophy of UHW has been that whether there's a collective bargaining agreement in place or some kind of master agreement in place, that no matter what, the workers, the members, have to have a direct input in the decision that these contracts take. And what we found out as part of a tenant bargaining team, which actually we started negotiating with a tenant employer who is actually a national employer. They cover, I think they started out with 64 hospitals nationally. In California, we originally represented 23 of their hospitals. They kind of started chopping off their limbs a little bit, getting rid of a lot of hospitals which were losers, and we ended up with 14 hospitals as our core group here in the state. And what happened was our contract expired on December 31st of 2006. So how we ended up in this fight with the international was that there was a lot of pre-meetings and pre-negotiations that happened before we ever hit the bargaining table with the membership and the leaders at the facilities at the 14 hospitals. So one of the problems was that the international had taken, was kind of in deals with the employer nationally to kind of table some items before we hit the bargaining table. For example, they had traditionally a union contract runs for 3 to 4 years. It's the standard. And they had negotiated a 7-year no strike contract for us before the bargaining team ever hit, or met with the employer. A lot of other situations which the international had their hand in doing was they kind of, they TA'd an agreement where they could subcontract, the employer can subcontract 22% of the bargaining team at any given time. So, right. Right. And this was all in an effort to gain organizing rights outside the state of California, which means if the international could cut this deal with the tenant employer, they would in return, in exchange, quid pro quo, give them the right to organize these hospital systems, tenant hospitals outside the state of California. So you have a lot of difficult situations that the international has created for UHW, because UHW, we have state councils, we have structure, we have member involvement where we take surveys about what is important to members. And this is what we're going to go about in our contract fights. There's a hierarchy. There's a salient, number of issues that we cover: retirement, no subcontracting. We want better health care benefits. We want to, lock down any changes to our health care plans. And what happened was that throughout this year-long process, as the bargaining continued throughout the state, we found out that there was all these deals that were cut ahead of time and that we were kind of just expected to just kind of roll over and agree with. Well, that didn't happen, because what happened was the member involvement was committed to their members at the facilities. We actually went into battle with the understanding, and foolishly, that we had the voice and we had the responsibility of representing the memberships. So now there created an internal struggle between our leadership, between this mysterious international union, their appointees, their delegates who they sent to problem solve and get us to swallow this, these deals that they had agreed upon. And what happened was, at the end of the day, we prevailed. The membership did come through. We did deliver what we promised our people at the 14 hospitals we would fight for. And in the end, we ended up fighting the international, fighting their kind of unscrewing a lot of the damage that they did to the membership. So, we ended up with a 3-year contract. We ended up with no subcontracting in the state of California. And we had to really, really hold our firm to our beliefs and our core values, that what we were doing was the right thing to do. So now we are at another crossroads where the battle that we started with the international because of their deals that they cut with the national employer, now we're having to take on internally, because it's, as you can see, the power to appoint, officials, dissolve boards, create new boards is a very dangerous thing. And it's very difficult because, we're a very, very large union. And one of the things that we have to get out to our memberships is that what kind of hope do smaller locals have who are not 140,000 members strong in fighting this Goliath? And we're all required and we're all bound by some way by the international bylaws and the Constitution to uphold their vision. So it's a very, very dangerous, slippery slope. And I'm just here to say I'm glad to hear that other locals have taken on this fight and have not caved in, because it gives us hope. And we're getting ready to battle, actually to try and preserve our identity as, a union that is actually founded on the principles that it's a bottom-up union. It's that we actually tell our president and our executive board what we expect of them, and we expect them to honor the commitment that, to the people and the memberships who they represent. So is that we would have to be fighting our own, for, just to actually maintain and, just maintain our identity. So that's the difficult question to answer.
That's how the money came. The agency shop. And everybody went along, oh, that's good. But then that caused a greedy person like Mr. Andy Stearns to come in and say, oh, here's this money sitting here. And he took it. He's taken all the members' money and doing as he pleased. And those people that have been duly appointed, I'm sure they've been compensated. I'm sure they didn't just do it for nothing. And then I want to let you know that I've been told that even if I pay my way to Puerto Rico to go to that international meeting, I can't come. What? And I said it to Andy's face in Washington this summer. I was in Washington, D.C. I let him know, and I said, I'm begging you to let me come. I said it in front of quite a few people that were at that meeting. And I said, after all, 40 years on the line all the time, and I paid my dues, and if I pay to come, you still won't let me go to the international meeting? Well, I'm going to be there. Me too. And Puerto Rico ain't no big deal. And if he don't let me in, he gonna see the biggest goddamn picket sign he ever saw.
The most important thing is educating the members. Sure, but will the members read the material that you send them? Holding their attention. How do you do that? And we have to take a cause and demonstrate it and show them exactly what it is in black and white. Or is it going to affect their pockets? That's the only way you're going to get people's attention. Because it's not me, and they go home, they get in their car, and they shut the door. So what you're talking about, if you don't say it's going to take dollars, if you don't show them dollars are leaving you, or it doesn't affect your way of life, they're not going to pay any attention to it. And it's the same thing in the political arena. They know who to target and they know who not. So find a way to do that. I'm puzzled. I've done everything that I could, but I'm not going to give up the fights here. We've been laboring this thing for a long time.
Yeah, well,
I've been on the board. I've been kicked off. I worked with Ron, Norma, Harvey. We all been kicked off. We were there at 12 o'clock when they took the keys and locked it up.
Tell me.
So yeah, there's a big history. And when I heard about Nell being appointed, we hired her,
right.
and then she turned around and fired us.
Thank you.
That's true.
My goodness. She fired us, and we were the only board that she dissolved right away. The other locals are still intact. They still have a say-so.